Have you ever heard of Yandere Simulator? Way back in 2014, a mostly unknown game developer known as YandereDev or YandeV proposed a video game concept to the 4chan image forums. In this game, you would play a Japanese high school yandere, a Japanese anime trope of someone in love and willing to engage in violence or murder to be with the person they love. And as this yandere girl named Yandere-chan, you would stalk the boy you love, your senpai, while stealthily murdering 10 romantic rivals at your high school who also want his attention. The game concept was a little dark, but as a unique spin on the standard anime dating game, the users found the idea really interesting, and the next day, YandeV began working to make his idea into a reality, Yandere Simulator. By mid-2015, YandeV is making steady progress, releasing free alpha demos so anyone can play the game as it's being developed. Well-known gamer channels like Markiplier and PewDiePie play the demo on their channels, bringing in massive popularity to the still early but promising project. YandeV set up a Patreon to support the project, which was soon bringing in over $5,000 a month, and dozens of talented artists and creators would begin volunteering to assist in Yandere Simulator's development. And as the game's attention grew, a fiercely dedicated fan community formed around it. By 2016, updates seemed to be happening quickly, with the first of the 10 promised rivals you had to kill, Osana, coming soon. It legitimately felt like Yandere Simulator and YandeV were ready to take the gaming world by storm. But that didn't happen. It's currently 2021, and despite almost 8 years in development and over $200,000 in donations from fans, Yandere Simulator isn't even really close to being finished. That's not to say no other work was being done, of course, and there's lots of things that have been added to the game, but 8 years is a very long time to be making a game and not be wrapping things up at the very least. These delays have led to some frustration from fans, but slow development on an indie game being made by one person isn't really such a big deal as long as the developer can maintain a positive relationship with the public, but that hasn't happened either. YandeV has gone from the next gaming icon to one of the most polarizing figures in the online world, gaining a severely negative reputation for his interactions with fans and critics. If you'd like to learn more about YandeV's drama history, you'll find links in the description to several of the most popular expose videos of him. And let's also be fair, YandeV has spoken about this drama, saying that the game's development, in his opinion, is slowed due to the unfair and toxic harassment he receives, and that while he has said and done some unpleasant things in the past, you shouldn't let those few examples of bad judgment define him. But for the purposes of this video, it's only important that you understand the necessary context that 1. YandeV is objectively a very polarized figure, 2. Yandere Simulator is taking a very long time to get out, and that 3. There is a very sizable and dedicated fanbase for this game concept that really just wants to play a finished version of the game in some form. Quite a few of those fans started to think that the only way they're going to get the Yansim game they wanted, fast, finished, and free of drama, is if they made it themselves. Is if they made their own Yandere simulators. Unfortunately, what those ambitious fans didn't know is that none of them would succeed. Hi, I'm Paper Will, and welcome to the curse of Yandere Simulator-inspired games. In the last 8 years, there have been a minimum of 55 separate attempts to develop a new Yansim game, and of those 55 projects, at least 38 are dead, 13 of them have unknown statuses or still under development, 6 have been, in air quotes here, released, and 0 of these games are what you could call a finished Yandere Simulator game. The consistent failure rate for these projects has led a lot of people to label the entire genre cursed. Now, obviously it's not a real supernatural curse, but there does seem to be a consistent pattern that these projects follow that inevitably ends in failure. So join me as we look at each of these 55 games and try to figure out what is causing so many of them to crash and burn, and maybe we'll even figure out how you could break the curse. Let's go. Where better to start than the very first Yandere Simulator-inspired game, Yandere School, an Android game by T&K Games. Yandere School began development in early 2015, right at the peak of Yandere Simulator's first popularity bubble, and in the game you'd play Akare Furutaka, an ordinary Yandere schoolgirl in love with a guy, but she's too shy to confess her feelings. And at the same time, it turns out there's a classmate, an exchange student, an arranged bride, and an entire basketball team that also won his attention. I'm not joking, by the way, I took that directly from the game's description. After only 5 months of very quiet development, Yandere School was released to the Google Play Store. So if the game was released, well, why is it on my list? Well, Yandere School might be released, but it is a huge stretch to call it complete. The rivals are bland, the voice acting is...
Already morning? Oh, that wasn't really...
rough. The game is over in about 45 minutes, and frankly, the whole thing feels like a demo the devs just decided to throw out on the App Store way too early. Oh, also, there's this really bizarrely long adult scene at the end of this high school game. It's not visually explicit, but the protagonist narrates a lot of it, like a lot, and it's just a bit too much info, if you know what I mean. Yandere School teaches us the very first lesson of this video, which is that you can't just drop a half-finished Yansim clone and expect it to make waves. The game needs to feel like a legitimate attempt at a full experience, or it's just gonna fade away like this game did at the end of 2015. But Yandere School wouldn't be the only Yansim game starting development of that year. Yandere Sim 2D's development launched in mid-2015, trailing Yandere School's by only a few weeks. While Yandere School was released in 5 months, Yandere Sim 2D's development lasted over 5 years before being cancelled. The game was created by user JackBoog21, who claimed that while characters were going to look a little bit similar to the original game, his story would be completely different. The game's description read, "You're an emotionless high school girl named Yandere-chan who secretly sabotages your senpai's love life from the shadows. Once every 10 weeks, a new rival will confess her love to him." And okay, that's literally the story from Yandere Simulator, like word for word. I have no idea what Jack Boog thought when he was saying that the story was going to be different. It's the same story. While Yandere Sim 2D was being worked on between 2015 and 2020, it looks like there were a lot of problems along the way. Several years into development, the whole project was scrapped once to be redone from the entire ground up, and updates started coming out a lot less frequently. And frankly, a strong fan community never really congregated around this game. We don't know for sure why the project ended, but I would guess without a consistent team of volunteers helping, the developer probably found it really hard to make headway. But as useful as volunteer teams can be, they can also be a double-edged sword, as our next game show. Our first Yansim projects of 2016 were Love Me and Limerence, and while they were different games with different teams, their development would end up so tied up together that I'm putting them into the same section. They both started in the summer of 2016. They both began on famous internet forums, although very different kinds of forums. They both had a 3-year development period, they both got into some drama with each other, and then they both got cancelled within a couple of months of each other in 2019, although let's not get ahead of ourselves. So it's still 2016, and Yandere Simulator is still popular, but cracks in development have begun showing as people realize that, well, progress is really slow on this game. A few members of the Kiwi Farms forum site decided they could do the game better and faster, and under the leadership of user Vertex Windy, they officially kicked off development of their own Yansim game in July. If you aren't familiar with Kiwi Farms, it's a site that mostly bottles down to users trolling people for laughs and then archiving their reactions. But anyway, these Kiwi Farm users decided that their game, Love Me, would have Miki, a 20-year-old girl who had just moved to a university prep school where she meets Nori and develops a crush on him. She wants to confess her love, but she can only do so in 10 weeks, after eliminating her 10 rivals. But unlike the original Yandere Simulator and most Yansim games, Love Me made the decision to build the game around a university-age adult instead of a high school student. According to a 2020 post by Vertex, though, things had been going smoothly on Love Me's development until one of their volunteers was fired for their attitude. That volunteer would jump ship to another project that had begun in September of 2016, Limerence. While Love Me had begun on the somewhat antagonistic forums on Kiwi Farms, Limerence was born on Tumblr, which sort of swings to the opposite extreme of political correctness, especially around 2016. Earlier on, there were some copyright issues with the game's name, forcing them to quickly relabel the project The State of Limerence. Limerence's story went, when Momoko met Sasaki, she knew she had fallen in love. It was so easy to fall for him, all the little things piling up inside of her and keeping her warm. Cute and funny, a wicked grin and the kindest eyes. Her heart couldn't take it. But Sasaki was a bully and a delinquent. He was known for how cruel he and his friends could be. But Momoko knew her love could change him. The State of Limerence was planned to have 9 rivals, but interestingly, you couldn't actually kill any of them. Instead, you had 2 or 3 options for getting rid of them in what they called the dove or hawk morality system. As a dove, you could befriend the rivals and help them in their daily lives, or as a hawk, you could just bully the crap out of them until they were, quote, out of the picture. And the bullying was supposed to be pretty intense, like leaking nude photos of them, framing them for crimes, getting them beat up and crippled for life, or even shaming them so harshly as to induce a mental breakdown that was implied to end with them not being alive, but not by your hand. Now, as a Tumblr game, it should come as no big surprise that the game would feature a highly diverse cast of characters from different racial and ethnic backgrounds, as well as tons of LGBT characters, which sounds great on paper. Except, have you noticed there's a little problem here? It's a game about bullying rivals, and all of the rivals are minorities, so they accidentally made a game where you bully a diverse cast of minorities and basically only minorities. Like, yikes-a-rooney, right? Okay, so you're caught up on these 2 games. Now, remember that Love Me volunteer that got fired and joined the Limerence team? Well, she apparently brought a lot of baggage with her, and her presence acted as this sort of catalyst event to turn both projects against each other. They started feuding, leaking each other's personal info, private chats, real-life stuff, and I could literally spend a good 20 minutes going into everything in this back and forth because it's well documented, but trust me, it is not a particularly exciting ride. It's just back and forth pettiness. Eventually, Vertex got so sick of all of it that he gathered a bunch of damning screenshots and info, reached out to the other team, and told them he would burn Love Me and Limerence down to the ground if the rivalry didn't stop. And somehow that worked, and both games went right back to development until 2019, where they went right back to being cancelled. The State of Limerence team announced that the game's scope had been too wide, they weren't really prepared for the workload, and real life was getting in the way, and soon after, Love Me suffered from managerial changes and a sudden shift from a 3D game into a 2D sprite-based game before being put on permanent hiatus. And Love Me and the State of Limerence are excellent examples of how just a little bit of drama can be kindling that set your whole project ablaze. And spoiler alert, you're going to see that repeat over and over for the rest of this video. Drama kills these games. I really can't tell you very much about No Mokugeki, or No Witnesses in English, only that it was created by two users named Osana Fan and Blue Pie in 2016. A couple of development videos were released, although my favorite is the one where you shank Yandere-chan models and they just haul ass into space for no reason. No Mokugeki's development lasted nearly 4 years before finally being cancelled in 2020. Cause of death? The managers weren't really happy with their content, and the Yandere Sim community had been a little bit toxic, apparently. Right around the same period No Mokugeki got started, there was a popular Yandere Simulator mod called Bullied Sim by Team Reparation Games, but at some point they decided to make it a full game and renamed it Hiwata no Nadoko. What's Hiwata no Nadoko in English? Well, according to the game's trivia page, it means "Where are you?" Which felt wrong to me. I've been living in Japan for several years, and I speak decent Japanese, but there's still lots of things I don't know. So I passed this title on to some Japanese friends I know, and according to them, Hiwata no Nadoko is pure gibberish. Doesn't mean anything. I suspect Reparation Games ran it through Google Translate or something. But while the title was nonsensical, the story actually sounded pretty interesting. Reika was popular. She wasn't kind, but everyone liked her, so she got away with things. But a new student, Tomiko, transferred to the school, and when Reika rejected her, Tomiko destroyed her reputation, along with other students Reika had wronged over the years. And now Reika, she wants revenge. Hiwata made some waves because unlike most Yandere Sim projects, Hiwata wasn't about getting some guy to notice you. No, you're on a personal mission of payback. And people were excited about this one too, especially because the game had a set-in-stone release date of November 2018 instead of just like someday, like most games. Unfortunately, that release date came and went without a release, and in October of 2019, they officially shut down their social media accounts, blaming community toxicity and drama, which again, you're going to hear a lot of for the rest of this video. Schoolgirl Simulator is another one of those finished Yandere Sim clones. Work began on the Android game in late 2016 under the team Marimsoft and was released in March 2017, so in total the game got about 4, maybe 5 months of work. In the game, you could experience social life, attend the class, buy sweets, talk with classmates, join club, ride bicycle and car, go to maid cafe where you can work yeah, they didn't do the translations great on this. You can also confess to other students, boys and girls. Oh, that's actually kind of cool. Huh, neat. Also, zombies are coming to the school, so please repel to protect your friends. Yeah, the game also had zombies for some reason. At the end of the day, Skullgirl Simulator is another example of a cash-in project thrown up on the Android store that uses words and familiar Yandere Sim imagery to try and raise its visibility. The game even uses the Yandere-chan model in its promotional material, but don't get it twisted, this is surface-level stuff only. There are no rivals, there's no story, I don't even know what it has. Zombies and cars. However, it points to the game for actually being released, unlike our next title. Moving into 2017, we started to see a subtle shift in tone with a lot of these projects. At first, there were two main reasons people were making these games. One, because the original game was taking forever to come out, and two, it was because people were trying to cash in on early popularity. But it wasn't motivated by spite, just frustration and opportunism. But as YandereDev's reputation started tanking, more and more Yandere Sim projects were popping up to, quote, beat him. Case in point, in April of 2017, a project was proposed on the Osana subreddit by user The Game Corner, who wrote, "I was talking about the potential of Yandere Sim being wasted by its dev. If you're interested, it's not hard to find. What if our subreddit made the true Yandere game? Our subreddit together. YandereDev would never make something of this caliber." That project was going to be called Project Lovestruck, and around the same time there was a second Yandere fan page that went up called Project Lovestruck with some neat concept art for a game, but I wasn't able to 100% confirm if this art was for the Game Corner's project because shockingly, both projects immediately crashed about a week later. Created by new YandereDev in 2017, Project Charlotte was another one of those non-lethal Yandere Sim games emphasizing ruining reputations of your romantic rivals over murdering them. New YandereDev said the game was going to have a huge scope, a reputation, a bigger school than Yandere Simulator, maybe even multiple schools, and that there was an ongoing tone of sort of surpassing the original Yandere Simulator. In fact, new YandereDev had even posted about his game on Reddit, calling YandereDev a bad developer and saying fans would flock to his new game. Predictably, these goals were all a little bit too lofty, and all we ever got in terms of content was a low-resolution image before the project was entirely cancelled. I was able to find new YandereDev, and he told me that the game was really more of an experimental thing for him before shifting focus onto his next bigger project, Seasons of Love. The original Yandere Simulator game has some controversial game mechanics. For example, to get points in the game, you can take upskirt shots of girls to sell to a character who will give you blackmail points. And there's also this infamous proposal from Yandev to have Yandere-chan's inventory menu being her opening up her skirt so you can see what she's holding. Not like that, like the things she has, but you might be able to see her underwear, which is, you know. Anyway, a team calling themselves Takekumo Studio, run by new YandereDev, decided they were going to make this game, but this time without the creepy stuff. Production of the game lasted for several months, with a few concept videos being released, but they've all been wiped from the social media accounts. All we have are some images of concept art, and it looks like you were already in a relationship with the boy, and there would be 5 rival girls trying to tear you apart. Sometime in 2018, the game just kind of vanished, and there's some debate over what happened. One volunteer I talked to blamed new YandereDev. New YandereDev claimed that it was just general strife amongst everyone in the project, but regardless, everyone agrees this project was failing. And honestly, a project based on spite is probably never going to go very well anyway. Anime Girl Games Yandere School Simulator started development in 2017 under Landmark Games, who brought their expertise from previous projects like Crazy Teacher of Math in School Education Learning and Drone Attack Flight Game 2020 New Spy Drone Games. As far as I could tell, they just load a bunch of optimized search terms into their titles and descriptions to get attention, and Anime Girl Games Yandere School Simulator is no exception. Does it have rivals? Nah. Does it have a love interest? Kinda. So what does it have? Eating. Just like a lot of eating. I'm not even sure there's a story here or even goals in the game, but despite using the same model from Yandere Simulator and copying a bunch of imagery, that's basically where the similarities end. It's really just an alpha game they threw out and injected the word Yandere and Simulator about 22 times in the description. You might have noticed that there are 6 projects named in this section, and that's because it's difficult to talk about any one of these games without talking about the others, and in some way, they're all part of one big story. But you should know it's going to be a hell of a rabbit hole, but like, all the rabbits are watching you, and they're screaming. So it's 2017, and a user named Lomcar, which is the first of a lot of names you're going to want to remember, started work on a 2D Yandere Simulator RPG made with the game engine RPG Maker. Around the same time, another user named KingMoon, remember that name too, he's going to be back in like an hour, also started working on a 2D game named Yandere Simulator RPG made in RPG Maker. Both projects use a lot of the same public assets, so there's plenty of visual similarities to this game, although as far as I can tell, neither developer was actually aware of the other's project. Lomcar's game focused more on a supernatural vibe, and KingMoon's project was basically a straight-up one-to-one clone of Yansim, but in 2D. Both projects died out in 2018, with King moving on to some non-Yansim stuff for a while. Lomcar, however, he wasn't really ready to leave this game genre, and he wanted to jump straight back in with a new, second Yansim project. At some point, he dropped his Lomcar username and changed to a new alias, Narwhals Are Falling, sometimes going by the name Falling Narwhals. So KingMoon's off the board for a while, but just remember, Lomcar is Falling Narwhals. In March of 2020, a new project was being put together by Falling Narwhals called Heartbreak. We're going to skip the story summary because it was pretty much a standard Yansim clone attempt. You go to a nice high school and you're going to kill some people to get your man. That's all you need to know. This time though, Falling Narwhals wasn't working alone. He gathered a team of volunteers to help him. Unfortunately for that team, about a month into development, the whole group just sort of snapped due to internal pressure. I managed to talk to 3 different former workers from the projects who all gave me very different explanations about why the Heartbreak team split up, but what everyone can agree on is that the group was not functional. Many of the Heartbreak volunteers though, well, they stuck together and decided to convert the 3D Yansim Heartbreak project into a 2D visual novel known as Heartbreak for Eternity. Outside of a prequel demo that was released, there's really not that much info about the game's development, and according to one volunteer I talked to, that was intentional. They were frustrated with all the drama of the previous project, and they just wanted to keep development of the game under wraps for a while. A very good plan, a smart plan, although as we'll see later, it didn't really work. Falling Narwhals, however, decided to jump right back in with a 3rd Yansim game and made the decision to change his name again, this time to a new alias of Dr.Apeis. So in April of 2020, Dr.Apeis begins Project Lovesick, which would soon be renamed Love Letter. He organized a mostly new team of volunteers and animators, including a co-programmer called Nocturnal, the secret identity of a user named Epic Meal Dev. Epic Meal will have his own section later in the video, but for now, just know that his participation in this project, even in secret, is a big deal. So Project Love Letter was making very fast early progress, and in July of 2020, the game was publicly announced in a video from Dr.Apeis titled, "I remade Yandere Simulator in just 2 weeks." And then all hell broke loose. Of all the Yansim games on this list, Love Letter was easily the most virally popular, and many players in the Yansim community were soon migrating over to this new, exciting project as the developer Messiah was finally here to free them from development hell. Remember, Yandere Simulator, the original game, had still been in development for over 6 years at this point, and Yandev's reputation had taken a huge dive, partially due to some of the drama I mentioned earlier in the video, but for many, Love Letter felt like it was going to replace Yandere Simulator entirely, and understandably, Yandev didn't like that. In fact, he and Apeis would speak about Love Letter's rocketing popularity, and at some point during their conversation, Yandev would ask Apeis to cancel his game as it was going to cost Yandev his, well, we'll get into that in a second, but Apeis leaked the conversation to his mod team, who either under his instruction or not, leaked it to the general community. Before I show you the screenshot, let's take a paper wheel, overly cautious moment and clarify a few things. 1. This is not a drama channel. I don't enjoy making content that makes people look bad, but this video is an exploration of why Yansim games fail, and to understand the failure of Love Letter, which, spoiler alert, is one of the biggest failures of them all, you need to understand the controversy, which really started with this screenshot. If you're aware that your project is having so many destructive consequences on another person's life, how can you possibly continue? Don't you see how harmful and damaging this is for me? If the cost of Yandere Simulator was ending a person's life, I'd cancel development. If there are tens of thousands or hundreds of people who are tricked into thinking they shouldn't support me because Love Letter exists, then there's a 0% chance that my crowdfunding campaign will be a success. Then Yandere Simulator can't exist. It's still kind of debated whether Yandev meant that Love Letter's popularity was threatening Yandev's livelihood, or if Yandev was suggesting that Love Letter's popularity was driving him to self-harm. I've spoken to both people involved about this, and obviously both give very different interpretations of what was meant. It's up for you to decide what you think Yandev meant here, but at the time, the majority of people decided, yep, that's a self-harm threat, and the hashtag RIP YandereDev went viral, and many people accused Yandev of trying to kill a popular viral game by pretending to be a victim, and for a few days, it kind of looked like Yandev and his game were over. But internet popularity is fickle, as Apeis was about to learn the hard way, because in the span of about 10 days, Love Letter completely collapsed. First, some rumors started floating around that Falling Narwhals is actually Dr.Apeis, which Apeis, of course, denies. This is important because Apeis' rise to fame was based on his viral video claiming he remade Yansim in 2 weeks, but since he had worked on previous games, people questioned if he was just recycling work from his previous stuff. Funny enough, as far as I can tell, while Apeis absolutely lied about not being Narwhals, Love Letter really was made in about 2 weeks. Most of the work wasn't coming from his previous project, they were just coming from the Unity store or Yandere Simulator, and everything else had been done from scratch. Then, unrelated to that, some documents from team members were released detailing management abuse on the Love Letter's Discord, including the harassment of several female employees by someone named Zaid. Now, in fairness, Apeis removed Zaid from the team, but the next day suggests reinstating him to give him another chance, which obviously pissed a lot of people off. Apeis claims that he had never seen any proof of the harassment, so it had been unfair to ban Zaid in the first place, but it creates this rift to begin growing between management and volunteers. Then, a user named NitroNix, remember that name, just showed up and told everybody he was in charge of a tie-in manga for Love Letter, something the volunteer team had no idea about. Not a huge deal, it's not, but again we're seeing more of that rift. And then discussions of drama would be met with threats of being blocked from the team. The Love Letter management appeared to set up at least one raid on a video about Dr.Apeis. One of the Love Letter members of the volunteer team in that raid, named Shortcake, the artist behind Love Letter's protagonist, Bochan, felt bad about her involvement, so she reached out to the YouTuber and they apologized, and then she was removed from the Love Letter team for, quote, leaking information, which was the equivalent of just apologizing for doing something bad. Then a lot more solid evidence started coming out that Narwhals and Dr.Apeis were the same person, and remember, they are the same person, but Apeis continues to deny this, even releasing a video call where he and a friend of his, pretending to be Narwhals, had a conversation as proof that they were different people, and people didn't really buy this. Oh boy, alright, we're about halfway through. Alright, stick with me. People then discovered that Zaid, the sexual harassment guy who had been kicked from the team, had actually been secretly reinstated back onto the team under a new name. The management tried to instate non-disclosure agreements with volunteers, people resigned, more call-out documents came out, even more people resigned. I could keep going about this forever, but it was just constant drama for days. But the final blow for Love Letter arrived when a 13-year-old girl came forward with screenshots of inappropriate conversations with Dr.Apeis from 3 years prior, when she was 10 and he was 15. If you have a few hours to kill, you'll find links in the description to all the screenshots, as well as Apeis's linked response in them. As always, read everything, judge second, harass never, but just like YandereDev's controversies, what's important for this video is that you understand the allegations that came out, and in September, they got Love Letter canceled. As for Heartbreak for Eternity, yeah, remember them? Well, their attempts to avoid the public eye worked for a little while until people made the connection from Apeis to Narwhals to Heartbreak and then back to Heartbreak for Eternity, even though it was a completely separate group from him at that point. This bad publicity was demotivating for the team, leading to Heartbreak for Eternity to be put on a permanent hiatus, which is sad because some of the work that I've seen from volunteers was really cool. Finally, at some point in September 2020, after Dr.Apeis and Love Letter had been cancelled, a new game was announced by user NitroNix. You'll probably remember them as that sort of mysterious figure who just popped up on the Love Letter Discord to work on a manga. Well, it seems NitroNix quickly moved on to his visual novel idea called Virtuamax, and he started a pretty ambitious Kickstarter for $5,000. Kiwi Farms, though, remember them, had been following along with all of this Love Letter drama, and after Nitro's Kickstarter began, some of their users began theorizing that Nitro and Apeis were actually the same person. The argument went, Apeis has established a pattern of making a Yansim game, it failing, him changing his name immediately, and then jumping to a new project. Nitro had been on the Love Letter team, and several volunteers really didn't know who he was and why he had a separate channel, and admittedly, he did jump straight from Love Letter to Virtuamax the same way Apeis had done with Love Letter after Heartbreak. Nitro was, understandably, less than thrilled about these Kiwi Farm accusations of being Apeis, and started posting on the forums to prove it wasn't him, and things get weird. Some of the users on the site had already doxed Nitro and found his address, and one of them, allegedly, contacted the police who visited his house, although that user was chastised pretty hard for getting police involved by the other Kiwi people. Finally, it came out, nope, Nitro probably isn't Apeis anyway, so this entire thing just ended up as a witch hunt of some kid who they thought was cringy. Good job, internet. You did it. God, what a mess this whole section is. And so ends the story of two Super Yandere Simulator RPGs, Heartbreak, Heartbreak for Eternity, Love Letter, and Virtuamax. Thank God, next game. Okay, so let's get back to the other 2017 stuff. High School Simulator was a project created by Kuma Games in 2017 for Android devices, and it's a bit of a weird case because if you didn't know better, you'd think the game was finished. In fact, it's been finished 5 times. Every year, Kuma Games released an updated version of the game with more and more features, but like Yandere School and Anime Girl Simulator, it's honestly more of an early release game pretending to be a complete experience. Of the releases, there was High School Simulator 2017, 2018, 2019 as a preview, also High School Simulator Girl A, and then High School Simulator Battle, but they're all really the same game. And in defense of Kuma Games, High School Simulator had a surprising amount of stuff you could do, like customizing your characters. They had these cool NPC interactions, helicopter, because we don't need rivals, we need helicopters in our rival-based video game. A truly finished version of the game never really came out, and the last video update from the group was called High School Simulator 2008 Skirt Physics Test, which was about 2 years ago, so I'd guess this project is dead. Anime Life Simulator was created by KGF-TBZ around 2017. Now, that name is really hard to say, by the way. Some members of the Yansim community might actually recognize that person as the creator of the Yandere Simulator Pose mod. Unfortunately, the last Anime Life update was in May 2019, so I initially thought the game was dead, but I did contact KFC-DBZ, and according to them, the project is on a hiatus for the foreseeable future, but they would like to jump back to it eventually. So, it's not dead, but it's not quite alive, it's more on a life support system. So I've got a mysterious one for you here. It's still 2017, and a dev named Fukushu-kun began working on Fukushu no Shimureta, which means the smearing of Fukushu. You play Fukushu, and your best friend Futaba is stolen away by mean girls who turn her against you. So you're gonna take those girls down to get your best friend back. In February of 2018, the game was technically still being worked on, as you could see Fukushu-kun asking multiple artists and volunteers to help on DeviantArt. but sometime that year, it looks like there was a break in the group, although I'm not really sure why. If I had to speculate, I'd guess drama, but that's just a guess based on what happened next. See, the Fukushu no Shimureta YouTube channel separated from the official Fukushu no, oh god, I'm saying Fukushu so many times, Fukushu no Shimureta's website into another game called Project Emmy. We don't know any more about Project Emmy or Fukushu no Shimureta, but it seems both projects died immediately, and Fukushu-kun would go on to work for the next game on our list. A murder story created by Yandere Mikudev with the help of Fukushu-kun and another user named AMZE began in November of 2017. The game would center around a girl getting bullied who was out for revenge against her aggressors, kind of like Hiwata no Nadoko, but even in a genre of games about, murdering young people, a murder story was looking mighty dark in its trailer. I legitimately don't know if I'm allowed to play the audio from the scene that I'm showing you, but a girl gets trapped in a burner building and her screams are really, really realistic. Yeah, ooh. A murder story didn't make it very far, ending within about 2 months of getting started. Supposedly, most of that was due to drama over stolen assets from Epic Meal Dev, who you remember from the love letter section and from the next section we're about to do. Okay, so we've talked about this guy a little bit. There was this user named Nocturnal who worked on Love Letter, but the real username was Epic Meal Dev. And yeah, he had his own game too called Watashi No Mono, which roughly translates as My Love. And from 2017 to 2019, for many people, Watashi No Mono was the Yandere Sim replacement game. This guy did everything by the book. He avoided drama when he could. He had experience not just in programming, but in animating models and making music, and he frequently made it clear he wanted his game to stand alone and not be compared to Yandere Sim. He did not want controversy with Yandere Simulator. Watashi No Mono was like a slightly less popular, but significantly less dramaful version of Love Letter, and progress was fast and the game was fun. It's really hard to overestimate how high expectations were for this game. However, after 2 eventful years of work, Epic Meal Dev put their project on hiatus in September of 2019 and officially canned it in July 2020. In the original cancellation announcement, Epic Meal explained that the project was never really supposed to be a complicated game and it was all just sort of a side project for he and his friends, and he was kind of unhappy that the game was sort of becoming this lightning rod for all the people who dislike Yandev, and the whole situation was just too negative for him. But as we mentioned in the love letter section, Epic would stick around under that username of Nocturnal and help work on that project, although he did drop out of it pretty quickly, so I don't think he was involved in any of the bad stuff. Now look, we don't know why Epic Meal jumped over to Love Letter, but we do know that Apeis and Epic had something in common. Both of their projects had been approached by Yandev. In the same week that the Love Letter video went viral, we also learned that Yandev had, in 2019, talked to Epic and was frustrated that his game was getting criticism over his development speed versus Epic's, and suggested that Epic's coding wasn't very good. He also asked Epic to come clean to his audience and say that his game was bad. Yeah. Yandev even suggested that because Watashi No Mono was making so much progress, it would affect Yandev's financial support, and if that happened, Yandev would need to make a follow-up video explaining that Watashi No Mono wasn't a very good game. We don't know if those comments influenced Watashi No Mono's cancellation, as that conversation happened 6 months before Watashi was cancelled, but still, it's possible. Stolen Love began production sometime in 2017, which you might have noticed was really the peak for a lot of these fansim projects. We only had a couple in 2015 and a couple in 2016. And that makes sense, as much of the biggest drama with Yandev was really going around in 2017 and 18. While not all of these projects were made out of spite or anything, I guess a lot of people saw this time as an opportunity to launch their own rival work. As for Stolen Love, well, we don't really know too much about it, but it looks like bullying was going to be a central element in play. The game received relatively consistent updates throughout the year, but the last time we heard anything was around January 2018. I don't really know what happened to Naoki, although his YouTube channel was paired with a project we'll look at later on, so it's possible he just shifted over to that one. Now, I wasn't able to find out who created Yuka Simulator, but I did learn that it was started in 2017 with a very small core group of volunteers. A few updates were made, but the game was never really optimized very well, and although the kitchen was filled with Yandere-chan models, which is kind of funny, the last news for the game was in late 2017. The developer channel was closed, and it's safe to say the game is now dead. Also, you could kick the bejesus out of people. Like, that was the only way to hurt them. You just kick them. You just kick everybody. Osana Gets Bullied was a very short-lived Yandere Sim fan game by developer Olimper in late 2017, which instead of playing as Yandere-chan, you played Senpai, and would navigate the same conversations Senpai has in Yandere Simulator, but from his perspective this time. Points to Olimper for a unique take on the game. I don't think there's any other game on my list where you play as a Senpai. Olimper didn't stop making content though, he just shifted to other stuff like his animated videos for Hebrew dubbed versions of Disney songs. Like this.
את רוצה לבנות לי שלג? לא שיחקת איתי מזמן. אנחנו כבר לא...
I don't know what to say about this. This one video has 100,000 views, and all of my videos put together have like 30,000 views, so that's depressing. Please subscribe, I guess. Speaking of depression, let's look at the next game. Depression Simulator, Depression Broken, Broken Simulator, some other ungrammatical combination of those words, were a few different games named so similarly, and with information now so hard to piece together, I have no idea who made what and when they were started and when they were canceled. All I can tell you is they're all dead now. All of these projects are dead. Seriously, that is all I could confirm. Here's some footage. What game is that from? I don't know. One of them. Here's some art. Looks cool. Who made it? I don't know. Next game. The Corrupted Child, Love and Insanity was started in October 2017 by YandereDev, who coincidentally was the friend of Dr.Apeis that had pretended to be following narwhals to help convince people Apeis and narwhals were different people. I wouldn't judge Corrupted, too harshly for that one thing though. That was way before the majority of the drama took off. Anyway, in Corrupted Child, you play as a young man in a Japanese high school where you must do your best to protect your best friend and crush from other dangerous students. It's one of the very few Yandere games where you play as a boy, although you weren't playing as a senpai in that game, and it was supposed to have like multiple paths and endings, and it remained in development for several years, only to be put on long-term hiatus in November 2020. I actually managed to speak to the dev about this a little bit, and he said that he really ended the project because he didn't like the concept and the story was a little bit too wacky, but maybe he'll come back to it, so who knows. Still, it's probably dead. Lovers of Forbidden Oak was possibly the shortest-lived Yansim game of all time, both starting and ending in March 2018. In this visual novel, you played a maid in love with the famous owner of Forbidden Oak Mansion. The project was launched in March 2018, got exactly one update the next day, and then fell off the face of the planet. If the developer is out there somewhere, leave a comment and let me know what happened. Mexican School Simulator by creator Ferrani Maciones, I'm saying that wrong, is Yandere Simulator, but in Mexico. That's it, and it's delightful. Interestingly, this project got off the ground in 2012, 2 years before Yandere Simulator even existed. However, it turns out that it was originally a first-person school sandbox game where you just walk around a school and look at stuff, and occasionally got some updates until 2018, where the entire game was repurposed to be a much closer experience to Yandere Simulator, even using the same Unity model from that game as the protagonist, with a sombrero. The developer continually steps up their game, adding VR experiences, better UI, and holiday calendar events. Seriously, I logged in on Halloween, bam, pumpkins everywhere. That's awesome. Also, ghosts. The ghosts aren't related to Halloween, but there's ghosts. That's neat. And remember, this is all on Android devices. There's never been any drama with the game, it's consistently being updated, and it's free, but the only caveat is, in reality, Mexican School Simulator is not really an attempt to make a Yandere Simulator game. It's more just like a comedy game. It's great though. I only was supposed to be like play it for like 10 minutes, and eventually I ended up playing it for like 2 hours, so I recommend it. But it's not really a Yandere Sim game. First getting started in 2018, Project RY is, as far as I can tell, an ongoing project by user Red. The game has been really slow in development and even went through an entire reboot at some point. Red was kind enough to talk to me a little bit about his game, and he showed me that by mid-2019, Project RY was mostly finished. It had AI features, NPC interactions, traps, and hiding places. All of the basic mechanics of a Yansim game were there. But as Red playtested the game, he made a terrible discovery, which was that it just wasn't very fun. So he took a step back from the design, he went to square one, and he rebooted the entire project with fundamental shifts in how the game would work. And quite smartly, he's also set it up so the project workflow can be done, if necessary, entirely by him. So if there's a volunteer that's busy or unable to do something, Red can step in and incorporate that person's work into his own workload. Red's approach here to develop a well-rounded skill set so he can handle any of the work may help him avoid a lot of the pitfalls these projects fall into. So good luck, Red. Oh, here's a neat one. At some point in the summer of 2018, a French writer known as Ali Builder created a Yandere Simulator-inspired fanfiction called The Dark Secrets of This School. Ali decided he wanted to turn his story into a full visual novel and released the first demo of The Dark Secrets of the School, the game, in July of that year. Visual similarities to Yandere Simulator are pretty strong since he's using the same assets to build it, but it's still a fun game. And while the fanfiction was broken up into 25 chapters, the game's development ended around chapter 3. Now, why it ended is a mystery, but it doesn't look like the game was picking any attention, and the English translations probably didn't help. Ali Builder is still around though, and he spent most of his time after chapter 3 doing Let's Plays of Yandere Simulator on his YouTube, so he probably just lost interest. Beginning development sometime in 2018 by developer YandereDev, Otaku Simulator is another ongoing project as of the time of this video. According to the game's website, your goal is to protect the protagonist's reputation, and to do so you need to kill 7 or 8 enemies in 3 weeks, which is a small break from the typical 1 week, 1 rival setup. Eien ni Shinu, or Endlessly Dying, began in March 2018 by developer Yardcindy, and so far we've gotten 5 progress reports from the project. The last one with gameplay was over 2 years ago though, and while there was a voice actor casting announcement earlier this year, that's about it. 1 update, 2 years. The project may very well still be alive, but even if it is, I don't think we're going to be seeing a completed project anytime soon. Bullied Love looks like it got started around April 2018 by user Sam2106, but it may have begun a little bit earlier or a little bit later. All I could ever find was a single alpha build of the game, and in the playthrough I found there was a link to the game creator's YouTube channel, but that link actually took me to Stolen Love's development channel. You remember Stolen Love, right? The game that was being developed by a guy named Naoki. I don't know if that was just a mistake, or if Bullied Love and Stolen Love had some sort of connection, and we'll probably never know. There was one update, and then the project just vanished. Suicide, wait, am I allowed to say that and still monetize this video? Like, a lot of channels bleep the word now, so let's just say self-imposed not living for him started in September 2018 by Starbit Light, led by the developer Nextone. And in this game, you play as a Kai Hoshi, a schoolgirl who is living alone with her little brother, Fukushu. Although Fukushu is getting bullied, and your task is to protect him at any cost. Besides that, you must control yourselves during your best dreams, but also your worst nightmares. So it's another brother protection game with some loopy dream stuff at night, that's all. Updates for the game have seemingly stopped and almost all of their social links are dead, except for their Discord link, which is totally alive. So I think they're still making this game, but wanted to pull back a little bit from the public eye, and as we've seen, that can be a smart move in this community. I'm marking this game as hiatus/private development, but with a good chance of public updates in the future. Nextone, the developer, was also famous for composing music on other Yan Sim stuff, like the Yan Sim adjacent, but not necessarily inspired by it, game Daigaku Gurashi. As you've probably noticed, there's quite a bit of cross-pollination on these games. The community of developers making this content is actually pretty small. Several of the volunteers I've talked to from many of these games have worked on at least 2 or 3 or 7 of the other Yan Sim games. In total, I've talked to over 70 people involved in all of these projects, most of which have asked to remain anonymous, and that's fine, I get it. You don't want to be associated with a failed project, but it's like everybody's got beef. Like, call Arby's, because this is where the beef is. Seriously, almost everybody has problems with at least one other person they've worked with at some point in the past, and maybe that doesn't seem like a big deal, it's the internet, everybody hates somebody, but I think it's an essential element to understanding why so many Yan Sim games fail. Moving into 2019, Yan Sim games started to slow down a little bit, but we still did see a few projects launched. The first was Yan Love by PKYDev. The project was cancelled almost immediately, but in 2020, PKYDev decided to remake the game, and it's been getting updates ever since, so we'll see how that goes. That devs also released a game called Sakura Story, which is another Yan Sim game, but they left work on it at like 10% completion, according to them, so I'm not really going to count it for this list. Post-Soviet Yandere. What does that mean? According to the demo page, Post-Soviet Yandere is a horror-craft video game which will allow you to make unforgettable gifts for classmates. Created by developer Evgenia Rain, sometime beginning in 2019, you would play a Russian high school Yandere girl using blood magic to attack other girls in your school. I don't really know if this had anything to do with Yandere Simulator other than the name, and I couldn't get in contact with Yandere, so I don't know. But it's kind of creepy, right? Look, it's got Yandere in the title. Am I not going to include it in a video about Yandere games? You think I have the willpower to leave a game called Post-Soviet Yandere on the cutting room floor? Hell no, it's in. And like most Yan Sim games, I'm pretty sure this one's dead too. Pretty Girl Yandere Life High School Anime Game, which is the actual name of this game, is yet another Android game where they stapled the word Yandere all over the title and descriptions, they put in similar art to trick people into downloading it, and then they just sort of vanished into obscurity. Pretty Girl Yandere Life High School Anime Game is just like a sports game, that's it. It borrows a bunch of aesthetics from Yandere Sim, but it's just a sports game with a name. The developers were apparently so uninvested in this game that they didn't even link it on their homepage, so we're just gonna move on. Created by YandereDev around 2019, Himawari Funsai is a game based on Yandere Simulator about stalking and eliminating any targets that get in your way, but instead of going after rivals that are after your senpai, this is more of a revenge story. The main protagonist is Nara, a girl that found out one day her sister went missing, and now she's gonna find out what happened, because this mystery goes all the way to the top. The principal, who's also your stepdad. Several development videos were released over the course of Himawari Funsai's lifespan, and overall the game looked really good, but in August of 2021 it was announced that YandereDev had suddenly just vanished, and he left the entire community. Apparently he was accused of something in a call-out document, but I wasn't able to track it down. Initially, the remaining team under new leader Yunachi said that there would be no way for the game to move forward without its lead programmer, but a few weeks later a video was uploaded announcing that the game would be tweaked into a new project. So, I mean, so far, dramatic project shifts are almost always the final nail in a coffin for these games, but hey, I'd love to be proven wrong, and Himawari Funsai had a lot of potential. Saiko no Stalker is a horror survival game started sometime in 2020 by user Habapane, and the first alpha build was released in September of that year. The game is described as, the protagonist must escape and avoid the crazy yandere girl who wants you dead. The antagonist, Saiko-chan, is a psycho serial killer. She loves to play with you before she has a chance to kill you with her playful AI behavior towards her senpai, which is you, the player. It's also not clear whether or not there's a connection to Yandere Simulator here. I spoke to some people on the team who said there was completely unrelated, but then someone else said it was at least inspired by the concept, and a lot of links from Yansim communities will take you to this game, so I don't know. In terms of drama or controversy, there was some sort of problem about the game allegedly plagiarizing Japanese concept recordings of yandere characters, which temporarily got the game pulled off Steam, but it's back up again. We'll see if that drama sticks around or if the game has made it through the storms. Who knows? Sarah's school life began in September 2019 by user YandereDev, and it looked to be one of the most competent Yansim games out there. It also played a lot more with morality than most of these projects, where their protagonists would actually question whether or not their behavior in the game was acceptable or not. But unfortunately, the game was cancelled in November of 2020, with YandereDev blaming comparisons to Yandere Simulator and a somewhat troubling age demographic playing the game. There are a lot of young kids playing these games, honestly. There was also some speculation about toxic community harassment, but I wasn't able to find any proof of that, although, it might be true, it's just that I can't confirm it. On the flip side, I found 2 different times YandereDev was publicly apologizing for their previous behavior, but I have no idea what that behavior was since everything related to this game has been completely deleted. Something obviously went down here with this project, but we'll probably never figure out what it was. We don't know a lot about this game, Academy d'Amour, other than it being announced in April 2020 and set in France, where you're on some sort of revenge mission after your sister gets killed by some other girls, I think in a car accident. It was created by popular Yansim model Ruben W, but it didn't get very far. The only thing I could find on this opening cutscene, and the game was cancelled around June 2020, so it lasted 3 months? Beginning development in July of 2020 by a user named Thorn, Obsession's an ongoing project described as a game where you play a Japanese schoolgirl named Akira who likes her best friend, and you need to get rid of all the girls in your way of belonging with him. So, nothing groundbreaking in the story, and based on the trailers, it looks like it was very much still an alpha game, but it's ongoing, so it's already doing better than most of these projects. Konogachi Highschool was created by CraftAlexDev, and its first trailer was in August of 2020. In the game, you would play an orphan living with a foster family, and when you turn 17, you find out there was some suspicious circumstances around your parents' death. Also, there's a guy you like, so you need to kill the girl that likes him, I guess. It's kind of a new idea to have revenge and a love story put in the same game, but the project was canned about 2 months in, around October 2020. CraftAlex has returned to focus more on his modding stuff. Getting started in September 2020 is a Life of a Yandere Sim, created by a Yansim Let's Player named Bacchus, who described the project as Life of a Yandere Sim is a simulation game in a university where you, a simp, have to find out who's interested in your love interest and eliminate them. But the game was really planned as a parody of Yansim drama more so than a real game, but something really interesting happened while they were working on this game. It kind of got finished and released on Steam for $3. Yeah, I guess this is the one game that wasn't cursed, probably because the whole game revolved around making fun of Yandere Simulator drama. It was essentially immune from that drama, and because there was a small team just coding away for fun, not too worried about balancing the game or making it a serious story, managerial problems or anything, nothing really popped up, and the scope of the game was doable. Huh. Yeah, it's out. You can play it. There aren't really any rivals, and the game is pretty bare bones, but I enjoyed it. It's fun to think that the one game on this list to truly get finished is the project that was never supposed to get finished at all. The one for me was a project created by a team of volunteers working under lead developer The One Calculator, and it has been a bit challenging mapping out the start and finish dates of this project. As far as I can tell, things technically got started around September 24th, 2020, where The One Calculator, who used to work on the Love Letter project, announced his new game concept. According to one volunteer I talked to, the game was dead in about 3 days. Shikatsu Academy was started sometime late 2020 under direction of developer HTPXD, and over the last year, we've seen snippets from this game's updates which look at improvements in models, assets, and optimization quality. All great. I spoke to the mod team over at Shikatsu Academy, and they said that there is a story, but they're keeping it under wraps for a little while, which is, fair enough. Although we do know they've made a lot of progress in the game, especially with the first rivals. So beyond that, there's not that much to say, but things look promising, except for their YouTube channel. See, on the HTPTX YouTube channel, there's a bunch of stuff about showing off creepypasta game content, which is fine, but also calling out some members of another Discord channel for inappropriate or toxic behavior, and writing that you've got more screenshots to share, you're going to share later. Like, I don't know what's going on with HTPTX and this other channel, but this right here is one of the reasons nobody finishes their games. People start public fighting on a platform that's designed to release information about their game. It escalates, people troll each other, the community goes toxic, and the projects die. So this sounds really mean, but like, good luck to Shikatsu Academy, but you're probably going to be dead within the year. It's just, that's what happens when these projects start fights. Please, I am begging you, stick to updates about the game and possibly the Sonic creepypasta stuff. That stuff's fine. On December 30th, 2020, a user named Energy Crate, who said he worked for Zirconic Studios, announced development of a Yansim game called Lovelorn. We don't have very much info about what that project looked like because a couple of months in, Zirconic Studios canceled it on February 14th. When I first read that they were shutting down development once, I assumed they were just taking off a couple of weeks to reorganize their development plan, maybe even lower the scope a little bit, but nope. They wanted more rivals, and now it's not just more rivals, it's a lot more rivals, and they want a story game with a murder mystery and improved angles and multiplayer, and I'm not making any of this up, I'm just reading off the page. They thought the first project was too ambitious. It got canceled, and then they brought it back as the most ambitious project on this entire awful list I've made for you. And it's been like 8 months and there's been nothing. So I think it's fair to say this game probably got launched, canceled, revived, canceled, abandoned, renewed, and then canceled again. Crimson Rain is the first of a few Yansim games that launched in 2021, and that's the year this video is being made in, by the way. So we're going to start seeing more and more projects that haven't been canceled, which is good, but keep in mind many of them are still in the very early stages of development. Anyway, so Crimson Rain. Think back to what will feel like forever ago to King Moon. Do you remember him? He was the developer that was working on the Yandere Simulator RPG opposite of Lomkar's RPG. And after leaving that project, King Moon would kind of go on a nomadic trip where he played and tried making other kinds of games, but in January of 2021, he came back with Yansim Crimson Rain. Quoting here, Crimson Rain is about two female students competing for the love of their classmate. You'll win no matter what the cost. As far as I can tell, instead of you playing a yandere killing all of your rivals, you really only have one rival to beat. And to be honest, the more I think about that, the more I like that idea. A common criticism of Yandere Simulator games are that they're always... It's odd that you have a weekly murder at a school for 10 straight weeks, and they're all like connected to the one boy, but nobody's like, I wonder if he killed him, or if that girl that's following him killed him. Like, it's ridiculous. But in this game, you only have one girl to compete with, and it's a very slow burn on developing feelings for your senpai. So that's kind of interesting. Yamane's Love Life, created by YandereDev, started in February of 2021, and I spoke to YandereDev about their project. While a lot of details are still being kept private, it looks like the game is ongoing, and a lot of things look really good, to be honest. They also wanted to make it clear to me that this game is in no way a spite project against YandereDev. They just want to make a fun game, so honestly, I'm hoping for the best for Yamane's Love Life. Created by Warfare Gamer, Yandere Simulator Android is it's an Android version of Yandere Simulator, started sometime in March of 2021. The project was going to be a close recreation of the original game, but just so anyone can play it on mobile, and it was quickly canceled. And then brought back, and then canceled, and then recanceled, all in the span of a few months, so I'm guessing we can chalk this one up to scope. Although, while we're still on the topic of like Android Yansim games, you should know that there are about 20 or 22 of these projects that didn't make it onto today's video. It just got really repetitive saying, this is another Android game about Yansim. Next up, another Android game about Yansim. You know, like Just understand there's a lot more that aren't on this list, but they're pretty much all the same game. And they're mostly cancelled. Yukima's Life was created by YukimaDev and has been in development since July 11th of 2021, so about 3 months now as of the time of this video. We don't know very much about the story or even the game, and I don't really have that much to show you, but I would bet pretty good money this game's not going to make it to the finish line. See, YukimaDev also has a YouTube channel where they announce updates and game news, which is great. It's like, again, it's good to build up a social media presence and fan base, but YukimaDev, you gotta, friendly advice, don't make call-out videos about people on your development channel. Are you trying to get drama? Because that's where drama comes from. Drama bad, YukimaDev. Drama very, very bad. It has killed bigger projects than this one, and it's killed for smaller drama than that. Beating Heart's another ongoing project, this time started by a user named Osama in July of 2021, and this time you play as Sakura, a yandere in love with her friend, willing to do whatever it takes to stop others from getting close to her. I spoke to Osama for a little bit about their approach to this game, and they seem to be taking things slowly but surely, and it's got some voice actors, NPC routines, and a few different ways to dispose of rival bodies. It's not anywhere near finished, but it's moving in the right direction. However, I do need to go into something a little bit unusual. See, the game was unofficially announced on the Osana subreddit by someone named Dr. Wolfies, which kind of sounds like Dr.Apeis, and they used the same avatar pic. Dr. Wolfies claimed to be a volunteer on the team, just showing off some stuff that they had done, but one of the other confirmed volunteers had actually come up and said, "Hey, Dr. Wolfies, who are you?" And then Dr. Wolfies responded by deleting everything on their account except for a single post on their user page saying they weren't on the team but had wanted to be, and just to forget everything that they just written. This naturally led some people to wonder what the hell was going on, and I think somebody on the Beating Heart team just picked out a Dr. Wolfie's name as a joke. They wanted to leak some info about their project, they got found out, they panicked and deleted everything. Anyway, next game. A few months back, RevengeDev started working on his own game called Dark Revenge, a Yandere Simulator fan game with a little more of a shadowy twist to it. The game is still under development, there's no weapons or kill systems, but it's still a very early alpha project, and typically the first 3 months is when most alpha Yansim games crash and burn, so if Dark Revenge is still out as of the time of this video, well, I think it could turn into a legitimate project, but it's too early to tell. Heartless is our 55th and, thank God, final game to showcase in this video. It's the most recent project and it's being developed by somebody named Corin. And just like any recently announced project, it's difficult to say whether or not this game will get very far, but after speaking with Corin, I came away optimistically. Corin has set realistic goals with 3 rivals and not 10. The game's not going to be bare bones, but it's also not going to have hundreds of Easter eggs and additional things you don't need. It's going to be a straightforward Yandere Simulator game. And considering how new it is, I think it's making excellent development speed, and there's no drama I could find, so who knows? Maybe Heartless will be the first completed Yansim game. Maybe it'll break the curse. In the comments, I'll be pinning a list of all of these games and continually updating it if there's any cancellations, hiatuses, revivals, etc. If you know a Yansim game that I didn't cover, leave a comment and I'll add it. I'd also like to thank the over 70 volunteers and developers that worked on these projects who took their time and helped me with my research and answered all of my questions, including YandereDev himself. I know he's a very controversial figure, but in our interview he was nothing but cordial and helpful for the project. That doesn't invalidate any negative experiences other people have had. I'm just sharing my own personal experience. And I'm not part of this Yansim community. Going in, I knew basically nothing. I just thought this would be a really interesting topic to talk about. Can I reiterate, please don't harass or troll or dox or just bother anybody in this video or even just anyone connected to these projects. There is so much negativity in this community. Trust me, we don't need to make more. I think the best way you could really break this curse is by focusing on positivity, supporting projects you like. Don't attack projects you don't. Just let everybody be. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you next month with our next showcase video. See you then.